The woman I met at the mixer I was forced to attend was an expectedly successful doctor. However, due to her lack of experience and confidence, she froze in an emergency situation. I discreetly gave her a lot of advice while we worked together to provide first aid to a suddenly ill person. As a fellow doctor, I decided to let her take the credit for the treatment so she wouldn't disappoint her friends. My name is Kent. I'm a 32-year-old emergency physician. Despite my age, I have no romantic stories to share. Of course, I've had relationships, but because I always prioritized work, many women I dated broke up with me, saying I didn't pay enough attention to them. I haven't dated a lot of women, but all my ex-girlfriends would ask me, which is more important, me or your job? They were always jealous of my job. To me, both are important. My job is not only for myself but also primarily for my patients. I work hard because there are lives I want to save. I want to help lives, treat injuries quickly and effectively, and minimize any long-term effects. As a doctor who can save lives, I always want to prioritize my patients' lives above all else. It's also my identity. And leisure time or time with a girlfriend is equally important. It's not a matter of which is more important. Both are important. It's just that the amount of time I can spend on each is different. If someone asked you which is more important, sleep or food, you'd be troubled. Most people would say both are important. If you then get asked, you spend 8 hours a day sleeping but only 3 hours eating. So does that mean sleep is more important and food is irrelevant? You'd be puzzled. Both are indispensable. Similarly, as an emergency physician, my job is more urgent, and time with my girlfriend can be flexible. Even after explaining this, my girlfriends wouldn't understand and would eventually leave me with remarks like, "Why don't you marry your job?" I often lamented the lack of people who shared my values. In my late 20s, I realized that I was a workaholic, not suited for relationships. I finally understood that trying to date was futile. At first, I felt some anxiety and emptiness seeing my peers getting married and having kids, but now I'm completely at peace with it. Most people around me manage to balance work and family. So, I realized that I might indeed be the workaholic my ex-girlfriends claimed. Given that, dedicating myself entirely to my work isn't so bad. Since then, I've been striving daily to save more patients and minimize their long-term effects through work and study. My family is very free-spirited, so they never pressure me about marriage. Unlike my single friends, who often hear, "When are you getting married?" or "I want to see grandkids," or "Do you have a girlfriend?" or "Do you plan to get married?" from their parents and relatives, my family never asks. I've never heard such comments even once. I don't remember ever being asked about carrying on the family line. I feel grateful for this supportive environment and focus solely on becoming a competent doctor as soon as possible. Then one day, a high school friend invited me to a mixer. I wasn't interested and was about to decline, but my friend pleaded, saying they desperately needed one more person, so I reluctantly agreed. I look average, and in school, I had girlfriends mainly because I did well academically. Since it was just to make up the numbers, I decided to leave after the first round and dressed casually yet neatly before heading to the meeting place. "Hey, everyone, long time no see." I seemed to be the last one to arrive, and seeing my friends again made me smile. It had been a while since I saw my friends due to our busy adult lives. Although reluctant at first, I was glad I came, enjoying the reunion with my friends. On the way to the reserved restaurant, we reminisced and shared updates, feeling like we were back in our school days. Despite being in our 30s, only our appearances, environments, and titles had changed, not our personalities. As a child, I thought people in their 30s were fully grown adults, but now that I'm one, I realize we still have our childish and flawed sides, making us quite normal. A warm atmosphere filled the room. I was having such a good time that I almost forgot the main event was a mixer. The venue was a slightly fancy place where we could drink. If it had been just a men's reunion, a casual standing bar would have been fine, but since it was a mixer, we chose a more stylish spot. We were seated and waited a few minutes for the women to arrive. As the women entered and greeted us, my friends suddenly tensed up. Remembering how everyone had prayed for a good match when we walked in, I silently cheered them on. We ordered drinks, made a toast, and started the introductions. "Kent, nice to meet you. I work at a company." With the help of my friends, I introduced myself with a different job. There was no deep meaning behind it, but saying I was a doctor often led to a barrage of questions, which was bothersome. Many women are attracted solely to the title. I didn't like that kind of encounter. Nice to meet you. I'm Rachel. I'm an internist. To my surprise, she was a fellow doctor. The quiet-looking woman ordered a non-alcoholic drink and placed her phone face up on the table. Since I do the same for emergencies, I knew Rachel wasn't lying about being a doctor. Although my friends suggested I drink since it was a special occasion, I just laughed it off. Rachel became the center of attention as soon as she mentioned she was a doctor and was bombarded with questions. Even though I'm an internist, I'm still quite inexperienced, she answered humbly. Rachel's friends seemed proud to have a doctor friend, boasting about her like parents bragging about their child's profession. Rachel looked troubled each time and responded modestly. Although I'm also a doctor, I refrain from mentioning it in such settings since I'm not yet confident in my skills. Rachel seemed like someone who couldn't lie, a straightforward person. I felt a bit sympathetic seeing her uncomfortable smile as her friends proudly called her a doctor. My friends seemed attracted to Rachel, focusing their attention on her. Rachel was beautiful, kind, and gave off a delicate impression. Despite the attention and praise from her friends, she remained humble and modest. Her humility only added to her appeal. I didn't feel attracted to her as a romantic interest, but I felt a sense of kinship as a fellow doctor. After all, my workplace had many young, assertive female doctors with high standards, often looking down on nurses and administrative staff. Pride in being a doctor was common, and they often treated others condescendingly. I graduated from a regional public medical college, but my current workplace was affiliated with a private medical college, which meant many young female doctors. Their conversations often left me baffled, with values clearly incompatible with mine. Our perspectives on relationships, finances, and ethics rarely aligned. I often distanced myself from them based on their behavior and attitudes. Many came from wealthy backgrounds, making their values the workplace norm, which felt uncomfortable for someone from an ordinary family like me. I didn't get along well with such women. But Rachel didn't give off any of those vibes. As we relaxed and got to know each other better, the atmosphere became lively. Suddenly, the restaurant became noisy. What's happening? What's wrong? I'll get someone. A panicked staff member and a man collapsed just beyond the open door. I immediately stood up and went to the man. I told the staff that I was a doctor. The collapsed man was the manager, Mark. He was foaming at the mouth. His body kept shaking and stiffening, which made me suspect it was a seizure disorder, but it could also be a brain issue. Given this assessment, I instructed someone to call an ambulance. Behind me, Rachel, pushed by our group, nervously approached. She looked pale and her eyes were darting around. It was clear she wasn't used to such situations, her hands were trembling. Rachel seemed on the verge of panic, unable to make decisions quickly. It's okay. I'm actually a doctor too, an ER physician. I'm used to these situations. Let's first change the patient's position to make him more comfortable, I whispered to her. Rachel, surprised, and followed my instructions to adjust Mark's position. We loosened his clothes to relieve any pressure, and I asked the staff to bring a blanket to keep him warm. Fortunately, it didn't seem like he hit anything when he fell, and he was still breathing. So basic first aid was sufficient while we waited for the ambulance. Emergency situations outside the hospital are always challenging, no matter how many times you experience them. It's a relief it wasn't more serious, I told Rachel. I saw Rachel looking down, frustration clear on her face. I couldn't do anything, she said quietly, tears starting to fall. From our earlier conversation, it seemed she worked at a major college hospital, but her age suggested she was still relatively inexperienced. Graduating at the top of her class, Rachel was burdened with high expectations from those around her. Even while treating Mark, she was shaking, clearly stressed about meeting everyone's expectations. Even though saving lives is what matters, trying to meet everyone's expectations is not what I believe in. I think saving lives is more important than living up to others' expectations. However, I understand that it's not entirely Rachel's fault that she feels this way. I'm not interested in my title, and I rarely talk about it. Because of this, I sometimes hear, "Oh, I forgot Kent is also a doctor," which is quite rude. I avoid revealing that I'm a doctor to escape the burden of titles and labels. This allows me to focus solely on what's most important, saving patients' lives. Rachel and I are quite the opposite. Yet, seeing her cry in frustration moved me deeply. I went through a similar phase myself. When I first became a doctor, the weight and responsibility of the title were overwhelming, and I often felt crushed by the pressure. Realizing that my decisions could change a patient's life terrified me. Being called doctor and entrusted with someone's life sometimes made me want to look away. Watching Rachel, I remembered those feelings and understood how deeply painful that frustration can be. Rachel, you were amazing. Really impressive, Rachel. You're a genius. After Mark was taken away by the ambulance, Rachel's friends showered her with praise. I didn't. Rachel's instructions were precise and very helpful. I didn't do anything. She began, but I cut her off. I said, meeting her surprised gaze. Her friends hugged her, congratulating her on her efforts. Rachel looked at me, confused, but I was just respecting her wish not to disappoint her friends. Peeking out of Rachel's bag was a medical reference book, worn and full of sticky notes despite being a new addition this year. It was clear she had been studying hard. It might be hypocritical of me, but I believe hard work should be rewarded. And I want it to be rewarded. For those who work tirelessly. That's why I didn't want her to lose her motivation now. Both Rachel and I will face many more challenges in the future. But right now, Rachel doesn't need the additional burden of feeling she disappointed her friends. With the unexpected event, the mixer ended after the first round. I felt relieved that I didn't have to think of an excuse to skip the after party and was ready to leave. Kent, wait up. Rachel, looking nervous, hurried after me. When I asked what was wrong, she said, "Thank you so much. Could I get your contact info? I'd like to stay connected as friends and colleagues." I found her endearing as she hesitantly offered her phone. I also took out my phone from my pocket. "Here's my number." "Thank you." Rachel registered my number with a pleased expression. After exchanging contact information, Rachel waved and returned to her friends. The women planned a sleepover and were heading out to shop for supplies. My friends and I decided to head to a bar we knew for more drinks. Still on non-alcoholic drinks, I found myself staring at my phone screen. I noticed a message from Rachel that had arrived unnoticed. A simple thank you message. I replied just as simply with "You're welcome" and hit send. Rachel probably wasn't great at texting, just like me. Our message exchange ended there. After that, we exchanged messages a few times a week, sharing mundane things like the beautiful sky today, flowers blooming, or what we had for dinner. We never planned dates, just sent random messages when we had time. It was a strange relationship, but I found it very comforting. Being able to go at my own pace felt light and freeing. Balancing my important work and meaningful friendships at my own pace made me very happy. We were still far from being fully fledged professionals. We were both busy gaining experience and learning from it. Too frequent contact would be exhausting. I found myself looking forward to Rachel's occasional "let's keep doing our best" and "good job today" messages. It wasn't until 6 months after the mixer that I realized this feeling was love. Rachel, still haunted by that day, was striving to become a calm and capable doctor, working and studying tirelessly, participating in various training sessions. I admired how she faced her shortcomings head-on, without blaming others, making excuses, or shifting responsibility, but instead making positive efforts. People often fail to meet their ideals, making excuses or running away, taking the negative route. But Rachel didn't run away. She was working hard to ensure she would succeed next time. While I was also busy with work and study, I ensured I got enough sleep and rested when I could. Rachel, being more self-disciplined, seemed to push herself without taking breaks. Although I worried she might be overworking, I was genuinely impressed and wanted to support her when she called, happy about her progress. It's tough, but I enjoy it. I feel like I'm finally carving out my path and can keep working hard to become a full-fledged doctor as soon as possible. She laughed when I asked if it was hard. Hearing her laugh made me realize that I loved her. I had probably felt this way for a while, but it wasn't until then that I recognized my feelings. I finally asked Rachel out on a date. "Rachel, when is your next day off?" "Next Thursday." Miraculously, we both had the same day off, and I successfully invited her on a date. Rachel accepted happily, and I quickly started planning our date. Although we had exchanged messages and talked on the phone, we hadn't met since the mixer, so this would be our second meeting. But I planned to confess my feelings on that date. I knew we were both busy, and who knew when we could meet again. To make sure my confession goes well, I started planning the perfect date. What are Rachel's interests? What's her favorite food? I pondered these questions, drawing from our previous conversations. Since she didn't seem very used to men, I thought of places that might be comfortable for her. These thoughts brought me great joy. In the few moments of peace in my busy days, I thought about Rachel. It was a sweet, new sensation for me. I didn't have many casual clothes, so I went out to buy some new ones. Not being up to date with the latest trends, I had fun shopping and consulting with the store staff. I never imagined I'd be shopping for casual clothes for a date. One night, an emergency call came in during my shift. I quickly took in the situation, instructed the nursing staff to prepare for the incoming patient, and rushed to the emergency entrance. As the ambulance arrived, Rachel stepped out, her white sweater stained with blood. A man in his 30s collided with an oncoming vehicle while riding a motorcycle. He was in critical condition. So we performed CPR and first aid to stop the bleeding. Rachel explained as she helped push the stretcher. She looked determined and reliable. "Got it. We'll take over from here," I said, leading the way to the treatment room. We disinfected and sutured the wounds, checked for brain damage, and contacted his family. Thanks to the high-quality first aid Rachel administered, the patient survived, although his injuries were severe. Exiting the treatment room, I found Rachel waiting. "Rachel, your first aid was perfect. It really helped. The patient's life is no longer in danger," I said, thanked her. Then, perhaps the tension dissipated, thank God. And Rachel sits up weakly and cries tears of relief. I was out shopping for clothes when I saw the accident outside the store. "I was scared, but my body moved on its own," she said. Rachel, still shaking, explained how she had been scared but pushed herself, remembering why she had worked so hard. When faced with an injured person, her body moved on its own. She naturally felt that helping the injured was her primary mission. She admitted that it took a lot of courage to step forward and declare herself a doctor, but knowing that no one else could help if she didn't. She was glad she took action. I knew how hard Rachel had worked until now. Rachel saved this patient. If she hadn't administered first aid at that moment, this patient wouldn't have survived. "You did great, Rachel," I said, patting her shoulder. She nodded in relief repeatedly, tears streaming down her face. "I'm just happy the patient is safe," she said, and I nodded in agreement. I gently patted her back until she calmed down. "Rachel, it's late, but my shift is almost over. Would you like to grab something to eat? There's a diner nearby that's open all night." I told Rachel that my shift was almost over and invited her to grab a meal. "I'd love to." "I haven't had dinner yet," she replied, her stomach growling. Embarrassed, Rachel held her stomach and mentioned changing out of her blood-stained sweater. She ran to the restroom with a bag of new clothes she had just bought. Her running figure seemed more reliable than before. She had gained confidence as a doctor since that day when she was trembling, trying to meet her friends' expectations. I silently told her "You did great" once more as she ran. After my shift ended, I found Rachel waiting at the night entrance and we headed to the diner. We entered the diner, lit by old neon lights, and took our seats, looking over the menu. I ordered fried chicken, and Rachel chose eggs Benedict. Rachel's eyes sparkled with happiness as she savored the food that had arrived after a few minutes. "This place is amazing. The food is delicious, the atmosphere is great, and being open all night is so convenient for night shift workers. I'm really glad you like it. I love this place too. After a night shift, I crave meat. I'm happy we could come here together. The steamed vegetables are plentiful, the soup is tasty, and there are so many other dishes I want to try. I might want to come here every day. Not just after night shifts." Exactly. Living alone, I rarely make elaborate meals. The food here always gives me energy. Thank you for introducing me to this place. It's really delicious. Next time, I might go for a hearty steak. Seeing Rachel so happy made me glad I brought her here. Before I knew it, I found myself confessing to Rachel. Rachel, I like you. Rachel stopped eating, clearly surprised by my sudden confession. I also paused, realizing I had confessed spontaneously instead of on our planned date. But since I had already said it, there was no turning back. I had to convey my feelings properly. I love how hard you work, how you strive for your goals, and even the casual conversations we have over messages and calls. Your determination has saved me many times. You've given me so much courage. I love everything about you. Rachel blushed and looked down. I've thought about this a lot. I believe my feelings are real. Even though this is only our second time meeting in person. I'd like to ask if you'd go out with me. I stood up and extended my hand. Rachel hesitantly took it. I was glad we had a private booth. I was able to keep going because of you, Kent. That day, I couldn't do anything, but you helped me not to disappoint my friends. It made me feel both grateful and ashamed. But thanks to you, I didn't give up. Rachel, unable to find the right words, took a deep breath and tightened her grip on my hand. The strength in her hand conveyed her strong feelings to me. Honestly, I didn't need any more words to understand Rachel's resolve. I also love you, Kent. If you're okay with someone like me, please take care of me. Rachel's humility, unchanged since we first met. That made me love her even more. And so, we started dating during our second meal together. Despite our busy schedules, we always made time for each other. Rachel said she needed more experience and knowledge, so she pushed herself even harder. She wanted to help as many patients as possible and alleviate their suffering. Rachel is studying with this single-minded focus. Inspired by Rachel, I also increased my participation in training sessions and dedicated more time to studying. I initially worried about making her feel lonely, but Rachel wasn't the type to feel that way. She was busy herself, and our free time aligned perfectly. Rachel valued both our relationship and her work, so we never felt neglected. We maintained a balanced relationship for 2 years. We were still busy, but Rachel was always by my side. Although my planned confession didn't go as expected, we ended up together in a wonderful way. We worked at different hospitals but maintained a good relationship as lovers and friendly rivals. Now, Rachel and I are married. My parents were surprised, saying, "I can't believe you got married." I was just as surprised. But marrying Rachel felt natural. We now live together in a house halfway between our workplaces. As a married couple of doctors, we share all household chores equally. Rachel is expecting our child, adding to our joy. Currently, I handle most of the housework to support Rachel. Having spent our lives saving others, the thought of becoming parents and nurturing a new life feels truly special. Knowing Rachel, she will approach parenting with the same seriousness she has for her work. I want to be there for her, ensuring she doesn't overdo it, helping her enjoy and excel at motherhood. As for myself, I want to be a father I can be proud of, striving to excel not only as a doctor but also as a parent. Rachel and I are still as passionate about our work as ever, constantly pushing each other to reach new heights. Rachel is considering switching from internal medicine to emergency medicine after her maternity leave. As a senior in emergency medicine, please guide me well. Of course. I'm going to be just as diligent as you, Rachel. I once thought I was unsuitable for relationships and buried myself in work. But now I've found someone with whom I can share mutual growth and happiness, and it's the greatest joy in my life. Even someone like me, who thought love was impossible, managed to get married thanks to a fateful encounter. Life is full of surprises, so I'll never give up and always be ready for opportunities. And Rachel. Rachel has grown tremendously. At first, she struggled to meet others' expectations and wore the labels they put on her, often missing the essence of things. However, her relentless effort to meet those expectations led her to realize the true essence of her work, making her a commendable doctor. If Rachel had turned away from reality after failing to help Mark at the restaurant, she wouldn't be the doctor she is today. Nor would we be together now. Her choices and efforts then have shaped our present and future, including our unborn child. This has also given me a new motivation for my work. Previously, my motivation was solely to save lives. Now, continuing my work as a doctor also means providing for my family. Having someone to protect makes me realize how fortunate I am. I want to work hard to protect this happiness.